Hi.
Hi. So, share the screen.
Let's see where we are here.
What page is this?
Kuflamet Hay in the printed version.
Okay. Um, doesn't say Amora'im Dor Shlishi in the printed version.
No, it doesn't, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay. So Amora'im Dor Shlishi, the third generation of Amora'im. L'Sarachi, Rabbi Rav Yosef, the Babel, Rabbana Davasaki Menachtin, and the rabbis went up and down. So the Babel, up to so down to Babel. Rabbi Abba, it says Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yosef Mehanach Rishonim. I wonder what that means. Um, uh, Chomar Rabbi Abba Yorei Lebavel Moser She was there. So Yosef Mehanach Luzis Yorbador Sheni. This goes both base. So it was a frequent flyer. So he went much more frequently, I guess, than the other ones, than the previous
Mhm.
ones. Okay. Uh, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Rabbi Zera, Rabbi Yirmiyahu, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Papi. Well, most of them, when they went there, so they did not go back to Bavel. Um, they
Okay.
stayed there. So they wouldn't go back and forth. Um, okay. Uh, but I guess they were born in, but telling us the Amora'im were born in Bavel and went up to Eretz Yisrael. Okay. The Ubesarachim. Uh, so here we have again in the text on screen, Amora'im Doravi. The Amora'im Doravi does not appear in the printed version. Abai V'Rava. Tarach Abai V'Rava. The Nafi Shamda Eretz Yisrael. And there was a great Shmad in Eretz Yisrael. Mita Ra Taman Tuva. And the Hurrah went down a tremendous amount. The he doesn't actually give in the screen version does not give details, but in the printed version he says, "Beretzel b'tkufa zu 323 lefi sfiras hanotzrim kava Kesar Romi Achadash Constantine Rishon es Natsrus Kedas Hamdina. He made Christianity the national religion of the Roman Empire. Hamilut Notzri, the Christian minority in the Yerdaf Arata, which is persecuted till now, her Fachler Rodef became a persecutor. Matzav so he said, built in his bow. The situation of Levi Shivas was intolerable. Maybe they instituted Yus Haredi. So all the Amora'im had to go down and to learn in Lakewood.
Mhm.
Hara. Hamila, Hara kan nitna lavana lichara. The the word hara here would seem, I'm reading some text, printed text, is going to the charak or mashmo some musak shabasofa perak. Sof hara. Only in the context of what's going to happen at the end of this parak, we talk about sof hara, which is the end of the Talmudic period.
Mhm.
Shunidon harbeba machkar, which is a concept which is discussed a lot in uh, uh, scholarly analysis. Rabuba Perushin, there are many interpretations of a dain ena davar borer. It's still not clear. Yonsham Birmenu. Megan Khan en Pirusha Borur Klau. It does not clear what it means. Avarei Brachas Heim Rava Shakosafti Rosam Zat Talmud. The Talmud is called Hara. Adain Sarach Im. It requires analysis. So in the, what does he say over here? In the print in the screen version, Rima Torah Talmud Nismai Limud HaLacha. Takes it very simply. The learning of halacha became diminished. Ismato Talmidim yeshivas and became fewer students in the yeshivas. Uh,
Is this about when the Yerushalmi was more or less
Yeah,
finished?
that's the assumption, right? The assumption is Yerushalmi is closed more or less. The Hillel Hasheni, who made the Luach, and it was one of the last Muchim. I think he's going to come up here, but I'm not sure. He was about 20 years after this.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, because it rang a bell that that's about when the time of Hillel Shani was.
Rambam says the Luach was fixed at the time of Abayin Rava. He doesn't mention Hillel Sheni. So this is the right period.
Okay.
Um, uh, so um, so V'nachis mind avatama min Bavloi, and those Babylonians who were in Eretz Yisrael came down permanently. So all they came down and did not go back to Eretz Yisrael. V'chol dar v'damin in Dorin, each of the generations, Isun Shmaitza the Grisun Rabbanon. There were sugyas which were learned by the rabbis, from Misaginu Tadir Tadir, and they would frequently arrange them. I guess it means arrange them in an edited version. He would repeat his Talmud in front of his Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan every 3 days. He would go over his Talmud every 3 days. Immediately be bored the dafsha, and he would hang himself, not literally, but he would, it's lean, I guess. It's hard, not clear how to translate that, on the doorway. Amar said, Chadoi nafshoi, rejoice my soul. Loch roi loch tanoi. I learned for you Mikra and Mishnah. The says here, Nishan Abriach Hashar. Lean on the bolt of the gate. Okay. Fine. All these shmos which they learn, each rabbi would explain to the students. Perusha Achrinim took a series with additional interpretations and additional inferences. The Avdei Uvdei, and they also come up with how to come up with new applications in practice. They would discuss the things which they would be asked, and the discussions back and forth. And there were differences of opinion between each one and his chavrusa. Okay. Did he say anything important here? No. Okay, now another generation came, and the hearts became diminished. Those things which were simple. Rishonim, Upashu Tamidai, and they explained the Tamidim, Bahavu Kigon, Hanch Pirushe, and there were certain interpretations, which they didn't have to previously learn them and embed the Gemara. Now they had questions about them. Had to put them in the Gemara and into their standard learning. And they say it in the yeshivas, coming to Gemara, and they would embed it in their formal Gemara. And they would learn as part of the Gemara. So before we go give the examples, he has a long discussion. I know what he's going to say here. I know where he's taking all this from, but I guess somewhere. So let's see what he says. I lost my place. Yeah. No. Wait now. Every morning, Shel, Chodesh Elu, Chodesh Adar, they were gathered in the great yeshiva, I guess, in the location. One of the students learned from them the Mishnah Oskim Baum, which involved Rosh Yeshiva, great name is Gemara Shaleh, and the Rosh Yeshiva would recite in front of them the Gemara, which is on it. Malabin name and clarify for them, es Mishnah v'chidush yotze mena, the Mishnah Chidushim which came out from it. Hachei Talmidim Mispaz Kama Batei Medrash, and the students was scattered to several Batei Medrash. Kol Charei Yoshev Bnei Rabo, each one sitting in front of his Rebbe. In other words, the secondary Rabbonim, not the Rosh Yeshiva. Chazan gives us a Gemara, and they would review the version of the Gemara. I actually saw Shkura Pian until they mastered it verbally, I guess. Rav Shalfan B'Yoshim Rulo Rosh Yeshiva, and the Rebbe was in front of them. Rosh Yeshiva Parsham Ezed Dvarim B'Gemara to Tzichim Pir. He explained some things in the Gemara that required analysis. Avlei Pushim is Bein Nichnasi Gesa Gemara. These things would not enter into the standard version of the Gemara. Shemishani was the Gemara L'Zorch B'Peh, and when they would repeat the Gemara to remember it verbally, Loi Mishani Ima says Bein Ma'Pirushim. She is Bia Rav. They would not say over the explanations and interpretations that the Rebbe had explained. Majority does not require these interpretations, only a minority. But this generation came since the hearts are more diminished. They interpolated these interpretations and explanations into the actual body of the Girsa Gemara. Rosh Yeshiva Geresim name is the Gemara. When Rosh Yeshiva would learn the Gemara, he would include these commentaries and interpretations. For the Talmidim Shani Gemara Zu, and the Talmud review this Gemara with the additional interpretations, PM until it became conversant in their mouths. So this vastly increased the size of the Gemara of the later generations. The Talmidim is passing the Batei Medrash, and the Talmidim would get scattered to the Batei Medrash. Call time for Rabo, each time in front of his Rebbe. Choshen against the Gemara. Rav Farshim Ezed Van Tzichim Bir. This is the same thing over again. It's just printed over again. Okay. So back to the text.
Okay.
But Asadarchina we might leave a banach mid love to have a cheating lahon. We showing it partially Talmidai was obvious for early generations, and they explained for the Talmidim. Like this position which did not require to learn beginning of the Gemara. Have a bahashta, but I know where he got the Adar and Elul thing. I'm not sure where he got Adar and Elul. It sounds like they only used to do this process twice a year for 2 months a year.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, but so it gives an example. An Arab which is put in a tree. So I see the text has a long discussion of this, of the background material. Yasi Rabbi Chia Baraba, Rabbi Yasi, Rabbi Nasan, Rabbi Yasi Nachman Gabai, Rabbi Yasi Kamei, Highland Kayech. Where is this tree? Elam B'Kai This is all the fourth generation now of the Amora'im. And they're saying they're asking where's the tree? So Yochid is a very particularly difficult sukkah. It's at the end of that. So Amar Rav Nachman Yasher. You're correct. V'chein Amar Shmuel. This is what Shmuel said as well. The way you resolved it. So Amalei, they said to him, Nachman was from the third generation. It says, Pasrisabel Kuli Hai, did you explain it to such an extent? Because in our Gemara that we got from you, or we got from your generation, it's not explained to that extent. Amalu, yes, Atu Nami Prasisubo. Yes, you also explained the same way we did. He explains it better here in the screen version. He says, "Well, Shmuel's in the second generation, explained us to Rav Nachman, the third generation, like you explained it. So Chacham's fourth generation said to Rav Nachman, Patrisu Kuhai V'chi Kochai Te Partat Mishnah Zu Beis Midrash Shmuel. She was elaborate on this Mishnah and Shmuel's Beis Midrash to extent. Amar Nachman, Lama Atem Mispalim. Why are you astonished? Shmuel Pasrei Tev Kol Kach. Tunami Kapris Sumi Datchem. Because Shmuel, you also resolved in the same way like Shmuel. Amar Kachas HaKavasin Lish Oloscha. This is what he meant to ask you. Krisu Nami Gemara. Shmuel Amar Davazek Kiperush. Shalom B'Torah Torah Gemara. He says commentary outside the standard text Gemara. Oh, Shechnis Perush at the Gemara. Did he include this in his version of the Gemara? Masha Shalom Shmuel Amar Lachnis Gemara Davazek Gemara. Masha Shmeim Ayu Machnis Kohen Dvarim Chadash Gemara. Umarchivim Esa Gemara. So sometimes early generations would include these things in the Gemara, and sometimes it wouldn't include in the Gemara. But in this generation, they're already included in the Gemara, much more elaborate interpretations. But the beside Dara Mamit Liba, the more the later generations get, the lower the level became. And Kamir Am Rabbi Yochanan, even though it's Rabbi Yochanan, so I guess Rabbi Yochanan started. He says, "Anu libenu nokiv kemachat sitkis." Our heart is open like the opening of a small needle. I believe that's the shot here. Libenu sabtin amir rakiresho nekev katan, a small opening, like a machat sitkis, which is a certain type of needle. Okay. He says it's the smallest type of needle which is used to sew garments, which got a crack and frayed. Okay, so that was. We're like a like it brings up for Rashi, like a peg you knock into the wall, but neck of tsar goes in with great difficulty. You can only understand a very little bit. With great difficulty, what we hear in terms of Gemara. He says that the they give there are two different. Did I skip one? No, just because it's having interpretation. But he says we're like a finger in hard wax, which can only take a little bit of the wax away, a minuscule amount in terms of svara. It's a beautiful shot for the Chasam Sofer. I like very much about this. He says the exact opposite. He says that wax you can mold any way you want. And so to the Sfaras of the later generation, people just say any Sfar they want, even if it's sheker, because they manipulate the Sfaras like wax. And they distort things and make things fit, even though things really should not fit. And they are, because they engage in this intellectual sophistry. The Chasam Sofer therefore says, he says this and explaining why when he has a shiloh which comes in front of him, he usually paskins like his first reaction. Because he says the first reaction is the most pristine and most pure. Later on, once you start thinking about something, you can overthink it and come up with all sorts of distortions and all sorts of wild svaras, which then you can say, okay, I'll make those work as well. So it's always, he says, always my muskal risha, my first initial impression. That's what I go with. Okay. Okay, so Ravashi said, Vanik Etzba Bebarza, like a finger put into a spigot that you can only leave it there for a minute to try and stop the water, and then you just have to remove it. And then, so he says, Shaber's the left one said, certainly, but so certainly take some gumi. Put there, rubber. I mean, when you so you put your fingers stop it, ain't no it can't stop it well, but bears the left arbe. And the force it drips a lot. We We try and arrest our forgetfulness by chazing a lot. I became law on elamat. It doesn't work very well. יש לזה אצבע ביר לשיחה פרשש כמו שאצבע נוח להיכנס לפי הבור. Just like you can put a finger very easily into a well, into a pit. כך אנו מהירים לשכוח. And so we forget very quickly. Says gives us etzbisa bebarzo l'shikra yosa yofa umistabra. It's an editorial comment there. Okay.
Okay.
The comedy I'm at Liba beside the Sfeika, the more the hearts got diminished and Sfeika started rising. Hanakpusha Rishayim Lo of a covering be a male. Those interpretations of earlier generations, which were they not embedded into the Gemara there, they Makabin Hashim Magarsin. They would now embed it and
Good.
as part of the standard version. And stories about the things which the rabbis in the previous generations had done also became embedded in the Gemara as well. Some rabbis had heard of something and they said it as one. And nobody said it first. It was stated generically. Gaon Amri. It's Amre without attribution to a specific name. That's interesting. The Sham of Amra. If one person, one Amora, came first, he heard it and said it first. Misamar Ishmei was said in his name, Amrabi Pliny. Darmina Psachim, Misam Psachim, Ula Iklola Pumpadisa. That was an interesting way of spelling it. Amar Le Rav Yehuda Rav Yitzchak, Bray, Rav Yehuda said to Yitzchak, Zil Amte, they call the parent, bring him a basket of fruit. Chazi Heche Mavdil. And see how he does Abdullah. He explains here. Havela al Sasla Shapiras Motzei Shabbos, bring him a basket of fruit, Motzei Shabbos. Some it says the Shabbos, he can't eat them ad sheyavdil until it makes a doa. Kach tamaraton nusach Abdullah, and that way you're going to be able to learn the way he makes Abdullah. The other Sherira Baye. How did Baye get in here? Who sent the Baye? Okay, it's a Muslim called apparently there Baye. Okay, so Yitzchak want to do it himself. He gave a Baye. Shech v'yeven ula. They bring it to ula v'yam nusach Abdullah so b'lach b'atzmo k'mitz t'vol aviv. And he go himself like his father commanded him. Okay. Kias Amarle. When Ula came, he said, when Abai came, he said, Amavdi Kodesh Chol Udamar. He said, Amavdi Kodesh Chol. That was the nusach of his Abdullah. Also, Amarle Avua. Whatever it was, Rabbi Yitzchak said, came to his father, Rabbi Yehuda. Ana lo as Abai the Sharis. I didn't go up. I sent a Abai for Amli Amavdi Kodesh Chol Udamar. He said, Amavdi Kodesh Chol. So Ula said, Amli Sarusi Demar, for Benuse Demar, your it's hard to translate that. Your authority? How's he translate here? Saruse, Lashon Sra Basilsush. It's a covered time of Chacham Batzmo. Your uppityness, I guess. Mena Lavil called the Perishus Arabim. The fellow's pasnish, inappropriate for him to bring a basket of fruit, which is Rabbi Paris. It looks like a fruit seller. So it's in the hands of a buyer who at that time was a young student. For Abu Seibar, Rabbanus, you conduct yourself like a rabbi. If you share a bit of Rabbi Yehuda, you make Dolly Rabbanim both a door. So even though he was a youngster, he was conducting himself like he was a chashva rav. Yesh kosim for Avernusing the Margaiva. This is your gaiva was that you didn't go. This is not Rabbanuse, but Rav Revanususe, not Rabbanuse, but Rav Revanuse, right?
Mhm.
So so you would have lost this advantage. The low titmar shmartza mishmei. The sugya will not be said over your name. It's going to be said over in the name of Abai.
Mhm.
Okay. Want to stop here? Want to go on?
Let's do one more.
The comment the Chacham Gemara shmaitz mi pumei, and the more Chacham was able to infer and derive sugyas mipui the Rabbe from the mouth of his own Rebbe, v'lo yipui midachrine, and not from the mouth of others. Tvei adiva shmaitze. It was superior. He explains here. Hilcha imatzu misijim sadir gemar shnei chacham mishnei aliba dechad amora. Found the chacham and sadir found two chachamim arguing according to one amora. Plenty of my b'shmo tera, plenty of my b'shmo yisura. One said it's mutter in his name. One said it's also name. Chamina shama me'os amora about. So one of them heard from that amora himself. Chamina shama me'acher, and one of them said it heard shama me'acher shama mishmo. Heard of somebody else heard his name. Lo yichlis gemara else divrei misha shema mimenu batzmo. They put in the words that he heard himself. Lo tzim b'gemara shesh b'zeh machlekes. They didn't even. It's interesting. They didn't even tell us there's a machlekes. Okay. Below put achrin tfei. Adif this adivish might say the Amrina Amar Nachman Yisok Kava Ulisha Beshte Krabiyimia Bar Yefes. Okay, it says in Brachas Chias Ulam Hashem Rabbi Yochanan. Say name Rabbi Yochanan Shlokos Bevarchan Leim Shakol Nia Bidvaro. Midchila several bnei met base Hamedrash. Initially, they thought the Ula Shama came Rabbi Yochanan Tzmo. They heard his name Rabbi Yochanan himself. On Michacham Daikon, or for a meticulous Chacham. Zhichlim Sodi Rabbi Yochanan Moshe Hein B'diuk. Meticulous giving of the words Rabbi Yochanan precisely. Achabo Tamim Eretz Yisrael Bavel until Tamim came from Eretz Yisrael Bavel. Masuk Sheish B'Davram B'Zeh Machlekes. They said this Machlekes. The Bechia Bar Abba Masuk B'Shem Yochanan the Shlachas Barchalem Bar Priyadama. Is what he paskin. You have Yefes Masuk Shem Rabbi Yochanan Shlachas Barchalem Shakol Ni'abid Varo. V'Azamar Amar Nachman Hashto V'Rad Dahad Amar Lan Ula B'Shem Yochanan Shlachas Barchalem Shakol Ni'Varo. Now it's been clarified that which Ula said named Rabbi Yochanan they make a bracha on cooked vegetables Shakol Ni'abid Varo. Lam Rabbi Yochanan Atzmo Shamam Kain. He didn't hear from Rabbi Yochanan himself, Rabbi Yochanan ben Yefes, Shem Rabbi Yochanan, who heard from Yefes, who heard name Rabbi Yochanan, at Shachazman Nishtabish Itzula, to the point they became disturbed. Ulava Sover Ba Sover Shem Rabbi Yochanan Atzmo Shama Kain. That he thought he heard it from Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, so. The Toiber Rabbi Chimayim Rabbi Yemen Bar Yefes Eitz Rabbi Chia Bar Abba. How can you compare Rabbi Yemen Bar Yefes to Rabbi Chia Bar Abba? Rabbi Chia Bar Abba Daik v'Gomer Shmaitz B'Hum the Rabbi. Rabbi Chia Bar Abba was very meticulous in the way he learned from the mouth of his Rebbe. Rabbi Yemen Bar Yefes Lo Daik. Rabbi Yefes was not meticulous. Okay, so again, in that case they did mention what Ula said, and they which evidently Ula did not remember. They heard from Binyamin Bar Yefes, but now they're saying that that must have been the case, and they're rejecting what he said because Rabbi Bar Abba is more meticulous. It happened to have been brought down there. Rabbi Binyamin Yefes held, but Ula said it. But I guess in order to teach us that we follow those who were more meticulous in their giving over what they heard from the Rabbein.
Okay.
Okay. In the printed version on Kuf Mem Dali, he says, he wasn't a student of Rabbi Yochanan directly. Abi Shamash Mus Rabos Mipiv. And B'chir Rabbi Yatamida Muvhak Rabbi Yochanan, V'ich Edusa Das Rabbi Yochanan Muskemes Musmechus Yoser. So he says it's not just that he was Medayik more. No, he was an actual Talmud. As opposed to B'chir Rabbi was an actual, Binyamin Yefes was an actual Talmud. He was just said over many things in his name.
Okay.
I don't think that. the in the print in the screen version he is more elaborate. I guess it's his own assumption. When they sound this he wouldn't rely on that and put him among his lachos. He would go directly. He says Shmuel mechubenet, so kavesh Shmuel zeh b'nei l'chosov. If it was something accurate, he would put him among his lachos. Yom Bevis lo dik to make more shmaitzah to Rabbi Yochanan matzmo. He didn't learn directly from Rabbi Yochanan. Shemay mitamid zeh shkach Rabbi Yochanan. Heard from his student, Rabbi Yochanan said that kavesh Shmuel zeh b'nei l'chosov v'al Mishem Rabbi Yochanan. And they but upon Mishatamid oh lo amarei but that's Rabbi Yochanan. She besh to dvarov and he would distort his words. Correct. He said that different story Rabbi Rabba should be daik to make more shmaitzah Rabbi Yochanan. May Rabbi Yochanan atzmo. Yochanan himself, the more a person learns directly from his Rebbe, and not from others, it is superior. Okay. Okay, this is the ode here is the new paragraph in the screen version, but not in the text version. So let's read
Right.
it. Okay, very good.
All
right. Have a good week.
You too. Thanks.